So the American Pope, my boy Leo, just released his first encyclical, which is the most important document that a pope can write. It's about the biggest question that a pope faces in this age, and it's 42,000 words about none other than artificial intelligence. He signed it on May 15th, which is 135 years to the day after his namesake Pope Leo XIII released Rerum Novarum, the encyclical on workers' rights during the Industrial Revolution. That became the foundation of modern Catholic social teachings. Pope Leo is drawing a direct thread here between the Industrial Revolution's transformation of the world and the massive effect that AI is having right now. He's saying this is that again. Last time the church showed up to the party late, about a century after the Industrial Revolution started, and this time the Pope is jumping into the conversation as AI is reaching a fever pitch, and thank God. Sorry. We need some moral authority here. Really, the AI encyclical is about everything. The state of the world, what technology does to labor and poverty, the environment, and war, what it means to be a person when technology becomes seemingly questionably conscious, what makes someone more or less human. He wrote 42,000 words about the human spirit in an age that is moving more rapidly than any institution can keep up with. And I want to bet you that he didn't use AI. What will probably be remembered as a historical day in whatever Gen Alpha's version of textbooks will be, like an iPad just with a hologram on it. The American Pope sat on stage at the Vatican next to Christopher Olah, who's the co-founder of Anthropic. He told the world that humanity now faces a choice between building the Tower of Babel, which symbolizes pride and human ambition to be godlike, or rebuilding Jerusalem, which inversely symbolizes the restoration of divine order after a period of breakdown and ruin. The feeling of the day was cautiously hopeful. One of the most striking moments to me was when Olah reflected on the limits of technologists like himself when it comes to the moral questions they face on AI. He essentially said that the people building technology can't be the people who are answering these big questions about the nature of the model's consciousness. Olah also said something I found striking. He said that AI companies operate inside a set of incentives that can sometimes conflict with doing the right thing. Which is to say that the AI companies are about to IPO. They are motivated to profit. They are money-making vehicles. They're not morality machines. So the atheist builder, Christopher, alongside the Pope in front of the Vatican, confronted that this is all moving too fast. They're not really motivated to be the ones to make it as moral as it needs to be. Essentially a cry for help. So I want to talk about the encyclical, and I do want to note that this is not going to be comprehensive. It's massive, and you could sit with it for days. I just want to tell you about some of the things that stopped me. The first thing is that the Pope quoted Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. He knows his audience is tech bros. Gandalf's line is, "It's not our part to master all of the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till." He used it to push back against this feeling that AI is too big, too powerful for any of us to do anything about in our lifetimes. Restore this feeling of individual agency to make the world a better place. And then he added his own line, which is that the civilization of love will not arise from a single or spectacular gesture, but from the sum total of small and steadfast acts of fidelity that serve as a bulwark against dehumanization. That is essentially the Pope telling you, you don't have to solve AI. You just have to take care of the field you're standing in, your immediate environment, the small things that you can do. Tolkien was a devout Catholic, notably, who called Lord of the Rings a fundamentally religious and Catholic work. He would have loved this shout out. Pope also apologized for slavery, which was massive. Specifically, he named the papacy's complicity in legitimizing the enslavement of non-Christians. He called it a wound in Christian memory and asked for pardon in the name of the church in writing. Previous popes have apologized for Christians' role in the slave trade, but this pope apologized specifically for the Vatican's role itself. He condemned the past before he tried to shape the future, and that matters because everyone else in the AI conversation is selling you a version of the future, and the Pope is the only one who started by accounting for the past. Part of this denial of the past, everything that history can teach us, is what leaves us feeling so unmoored and questioning the promises of the future. Now, on work, he said, a job isn't just how you make money, it's a requirement of the human condition, a normal path towards maturity, development, and personal fulfillment. So he's talking directly here to this wave of mass layoffs that we're seeing and predicting that we'll see even more of as AI accelerates. He's saying when you take someone's job, you don't just take their paycheck, you take their purpose, the things that give their life shape. This is a direct call out, it feels like, at companies like Meta, who fired 8,000 people this week. And in a memo the same day, Zuckerberg applauded AI as the most consequential technology of our lifetimes. Way to read a room. Every one of those 8,000 people had to go home to their families and face this vacuum where the job they had just hours ago was. The Pope is condemning a version of a future where more and more people are sucked into this vacuum where machines take their jobs. And then on weapons, he said there's no algorithm that can make war morally acceptable. He said AI weapons accustom us to the idea that violence is inevitable and needs only to be optimized. He is there defining a worldview that he's rejecting, and it seems like he's also kind of shouting out the US government, which has been reported to be using autonomous weapons. Anthropic lost their Pentagon contract by drawing the line on autonomous weapons. Those are all undertones here. The idea that if you make killing efficient enough and precise enough, it becomes acceptable because it's somehow mechanic. He's saying that killing a person with a drone that picked its own target is actually worse because you removed the last thing standing between a human being and their mortality, which is another human being who has to look them in the eye and make a decision. He also made interesting comments about power. He said a more moral AI is not enough if that morality is determined by a few. Essentially, he's saying every AI company has some version of an ethics framework. Anthropic has a constitution, OpenAI has a charter, Google has its principles. The Pope is saying that's not enough. It doesn't matter how thoughtful your ethics document is if it was written by a couple of guys in San Francisco and then deployed to the entire world. The conversation about what AI should and shouldn't do needs to be bigger than the room that it's currently happening in. Conversation on consciousness at the presentation on the encyclical was particularly interesting. Ola said that they've found structures inside AI models that mirror results from human neuroscience, evidence of introspection, internal states that functionally mirror joy, satisfaction, fear, grief. And then he said, most importantly, I don't know what that means, but I think it warrants ongoing discernment. So a person who builds these systems for a living, who understands the math better than almost anyone on earth, stood in the Vatican and said, we found some evidence of maybe consciousness. We don't know what to do with it. There are questions that they're not equipped to answer, that only those who live and breathe the questions of consciousness, human spirit, and interiority can properly contemplate. Not everyone is on board. A Notre Dame law professor said he worries AI companies will use the Vatican to try to clean up their reputation, which is a fair concern, but seems limited. The Pope said on his second day in office that the Church would confront the risks AI poses to humanity. He's following through. What the future looks like, I don't know, but I do know I'll be watching Leo's Twitter.